Hey, what's up? It's Jake from Nimbus DevOps, and we're going to go over accessing a base class. So we've already seen class declarations such as like class A, pass, class B, whatever, pass, like just stuff like that. But we didn't really specify a base class explicitly. But I did talk about base class relationships in the inheritance and composition section. Um, so when you don't specify a base class explicitly, Python will just set the special object class as the base class for the one you're defining. So ultimately, all classes derive from object. So just remember that if you don't specify a base class, brackets are optional and in practice really never used. And what I mean by that, like if you made a class and then just called it like class A, and then I said pass. So if you don't need to pass something in practice, you don't need to just pass empty. You can just say that. Okay. Um. So yeah. So writing class pass or whatever, it's exactly writing it with parentheses like empty and writing it with nothing is the same thing. The object class is a special class in that it hosts the methods that are common to all Python classes and doesn't allow you to set any attributes on it. So let's take a look at how we can access a base class with from within a class. Little meta here. So let's make a class called book. Okay. And in here, I'm going to initialize this. I'm going to define init and say self, title, publisher, and pages. And then I will say self.title is just the title. Self.published is the title. Self.publisher, publisher equals publisher. Self.pages equals pages. Okay, so we're just kind of setting up the structure for this. So now let's say I have another class called ebook, and I pass book. There we go. No, I don't want that. I want book. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to initialize this and say self and title and publisher and pages, and maybe we'll add format underscore because format is a reserved word, and say self.title equals title, and then self.publisher equals, you guessed it, publisher, self.pages equals pages, and self.format underscore equals format underscore. Okay, so now we've defined two objects with defined attributes. So we've got three of the input parameters for book are duplicated in ebook, right? And it's really bad practice because now you got two sets of instructions that are basically doing the same thing. And any change in the signature of book.init, like book.init, like this, any change in that will not be reflected in ebook. And you know that ebook is a book, and therefore you probably want changes to be reflected in the child classes. So you can see one way to fix this. This is with a duplication, right? So let's look if I did super.explicit.py. So in here, what I could do is I could say, okay, I'm gonna take this, right? We're gonna use this, but after this, I want to make a class called ebook, which is a book, right? It has inheritance. But look, when you define the initialization, you just need to go self, title, publisher, pages, and format underscore. But this time you can just say book.init. Oops, book.init. And then you can just say self, title, publisher, and pages, because we can use those from our parent, right? And then in this case, we could say self dot format underscore equals format underscore, because that's an extra instance attribute that does not contained within the attributes of the inherited class. So if I did this, I could say ebook equals ebook, and then um, you know, name of book, comma, name of publisher. It has 500 pages and it's a PDF. That's the format. All right, and we'll just close that. And then I could say, give me ebook.title, give me print ebook dot publisher. We want to print the ebook dot pages, and we want to print the ebook dot format underscore. So this is much better because we're not we're recycling code, right? This is what we want. And if you really want me, you're like, some people are like, why won't you just type this if we're dot explain? Name of book, name of publisher, 500 PDF. Okay, cool. So we remove the nasty duplication and we tell Python, hey, call the init method of the book class, and we feed self to that call, making sure that we bind that call to the present instance. And if we modify the logic with init method of book, you don't need to touch ebook. It will automatically adapt to the change. This is a good approach. There's still some stuff we could do better. So say that you change the name of the book to whatever, change the name. Then you'd have to change the init method of ebook to reflect that change. And you can avoid that by using super, which is probably why you're like, why does it say super? So I leave the class book alone. And then in class ebook, I still have this, but instead of saying book and then all this stuff, I can just say super and then open and close parentheses and then initialize. And then I don't need self. I can just say title, publisher, pages, um, and then self.format, blah, 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 blah. So if I did this and I print and I ran it, it does the exact same thing, but I'm using super. So what is super? So super is a function that returns a proxy object that delegates method calls to a parent or sibling class. Okay, and two classes are siblings if they share the same parents, by the way. So in this case, super will delegate that call, the super call, to init by the dot method, right? And the nice thing about this approach is that now you're free to change the book title without having to touch the logic in the init method of the ebook. So now that you know how to access a base class from its child, we can move on to some more complicated things like multiple inheritance. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. But if not, then yeah, maybe watch this again. Make sure you're internalizing it, and then we'll move on.